All right, guys, welcome to another edition of Go Talk with myself, the Flagrant 2, and James Hollis, Snottie Drippen. But tonight it's not about us. We got a legend in the game, Mr. Rapper Big Pooh, one half of Little Brother Big Pooh. Thank you so much for joining us, man. How you feeling, bro?
Man, I'm good, man. Thank y'all for having me. This is fun, man. I love to get in and be able to talk. I mean, I don't mind talking music and Little Brother, but I love being able to talk sports. That's my wheelhouse.
Yes, sir.
You're going to see me smiling more than anyone's ever seen me on this show, man. I'm really glad you could join us, talk a little bit. We're going to talk about a lot of just general NBA. Obviously, we'll do the GOAT talk with the Thunder. And we're going to touch on, the squad that you ride for, Big Pooh, Wizards, which,
For sure.
I ain't going to talk too bad about you right now. I'm a Celtics fan, so I'm going to let you skate right now.
Just hurt me. I'm gonna have to mute you for about a day or two on Twitter.
Don't do me like that, brother. Don't do me like that.
Yeah, so Pooh, I did a little research, and I know that you've, you're a huge NBA fan. You did a little writing with Slam, right? And so I know you're a big NBA fan. So you must be pretty pumped that the NBA is coming back, right?
Man, I'm pumped for any sports at this point. I was telling somebody yesterday, I done watched all the Netflix. I done watched all the Hulu. I done watched enough regular TV as I can handle. So it's cool seeing the NBA back and WNBA back. I was watching some WNBA yesterday. And it's actually pretty cool watching them in the atmosphere they're in because it looks like they're in the AAU tournament. So that's pretty cool to see. But I'm excited for basketball, man, and hopefully they can go and rock this thing out into the finish the season out, and we gonna be watching.
Is there anything in particular that you're looking out for, like teams on the rise, or just like players that you rock with, or anything like that?
I think for me, I'm really curious to see how teams respond to the time off. It put a lot of people, and I know a lot of people say, "Oh, the Lakers are the odds-on favorite, or the Clippers." But I think that the time off kind of leveled the playing field for a few teams, like a Houston. They can really catch you slipping now if they can stay healthy. Denver can catch you slipping because they're deep if they can stay healthy. So them deep teams now, that's one thing the Clippers probably have working in their favor, is that they're a deep team. But I think the deep teams are the teams that have a chance to catch somebody slipping with the return to play.
See, on that topic, you said the Clippers, they're missing two of their key guys, right? Like right now, Montrezl Harrell had to go home. Harrell had to go home and take care of the personal stuff. And Lou Will, we all famously know, he went home for an issue and something about wings and Jack Harlow.
Mr. Magic City, baby.
Mr. Magic City. Hey,
it was takeout. He wasn't in the strip club.
Yeah, right. So yeah, what do you think about that situation? Like, I'm of the thing that, like, Lou Will, even if it was perfectly harmless, he has to know the optics. He can't be, on social media like that. And it's kind of dangerous because if something happens and he comes back to the bubble, from some extracurricular activity, he's endangering the whole process. I know they test every day and everything, but what are your thoughts on the Lou Will situation?
I definitely think that it was a bad display of judgment on his part. Just going, like you said, the optics of it just look crazy. Even though obviously people do really just go there to eat, it still just looks crazy. Like you're going to the strip club to eat. Like most people don't believe it, Right. So I think the optics of it was a little crazy on his part, and I just think he, if you do leave the bubble, I mean, he did leave for a legit family, issue. His pops passed away, but I think if you're going to leave the bubble for true family emergency, that you just leave it at that, and then you come back and you get ready. Because forget the other teams, like I wouldn't worry about him infecting nobody with corona or none of that because of their policy and how they do things. It's the fact it's your own team that you're hurting. Like they're depending on you. They need you. They're counting on you. And luckily for him, or fortunately for him, the time he did it was before games even started. So his 10 days in quarantine done already started, and the counting And by the time he come back, they're not worried about the little 8-game seed play or whatever. So, it is not going to hurt his team as much as it could have, but you just got to use better judgment, man. At the end of the day, if you leave the bubble, so that goes for, Montrezl Harrell, who's out right now. For Houston, what is the kid, Doc's son, Justin Rivers, he out. I think Zion back. Yeah. Austin went out over the weekend. Zion back in. He back practicing and stuff now. So I just think if you're gonna leave, if you do have a real emergency and you leave, when you just use your better judgment, go do your emergency, come back, get your little couple days in the quarantine, and then get back out there to help your team. Because at the end of the day, it's a game, but this is your job. This is you're being paid for this. This is your job. So be professional.
There you go.
Do you think the NBA and the media, do you think they overblow stories like this? And do you think that there are certain players that get more overly criticized than certain players? Or do you think this is just an example of, it's like a perfect storm of like, nobody's got shit to do and, it's like, it's just a bad look and it was a strip club? Or do you think certain players get targeted? Or do you think this is just like, or what do you think about that? The way it's treated, the story's treated?
I think the NBA actually does a very good job of, kind of keeping things, from getting carried away. Obviously, the bigger star you are, the more scrutiny you're going to have. I just think this was just extremely bad optics on Lou Will part. And I think that the NBA kind of helped make a big deal out of it for a reason. They took Lou Will, made an example out of Lou Will. Like, if you go out and you're not responsible and you do something that you shouldn't be doing while you're out of the bubble, they're going to make an example out of you. And I think that's what this was. So I think any other person that has to leave the bubble for a legitimate reason, they're going to think about that now. Like, I don't want to become Lou Will and, my story out there crazy because I decided to go get some takeout from Magic City. Like, nobody wants to be that now. Like, he's that guy. So nobody wants to be that guy now.
And to piggyback off that, man, like the NBA, to answer that question, the NBA is one of the things, it's called the bubble. They're under the spotlight, right? Like, everyone's talking about football, the NBA, and baseball. Those are, so at this time, anything that any player does is under the spotlight. And so I don't know if they blew out of proportion, but it's definitely like a big star put it on Snapchat, like everyone saw it, so they got to address it. They can't just it's not okay, So, that's a great question. So NBA starting up. You are a Wizards fan.
Yes, I am.
Let's talk about let's talk about what brought you into the NBA. What's your earliest NBA memory? What are some the things that make you think, the first thing you think, man, I really love basketball. I love the NBA. What's some of the things that you think about when you think basketball?
I think about trips to the Capitol Center. That's what it was called. It was in Maryland. The Capitol Center to watch the Bullets play. Liddell Eccles, Michael Adams, it's Tracy Murray. Wes Unseld was coaching, doing a terrible job at it. Rest in peace, but he was coaching.
He was a good coach.
So I definitely remember. I remember when we drafted Juwan Howard and then traded for Chris Webber, and in Chris Webber's first game. I remember them getting swept by the Bulls in the playoffs the one year they went up against them. I forgot what year it was. So, I definitely have a lot of fond memories of just of the Bullets / Wizards, and then just basketball in general. I grew up in the 90s, essentially. I was born in 1980, but I really grew up in the 90s. And just the Bulls era, I was cognitive and old enough to witness the end of the Piston, the quick Piston era. So, basketball was just always for me, it was my favorite sport, and just the competition, the different players, I love how you can be the greatest player in the world, Michael Jordan, but you still need the proper team around you to really get it done. So just all those different things and the different storylines growing up in the 90s just made me just a huge basketball fan. And, of course, spending time at the Capitol Center, that was the easiest ticket to get back when I was growing up. Like, you couldn't get a Redskin ticket. You couldn't – Washington football team. You couldn't get a Washington football team ticket. You couldn't get a Orioles ticket. That's when Cal Ripken was still playing, Cal Ripken Jr. So it was the easiest ticket to get was a Bullets ticket. And so I went to plenty of games.
James, you got something to add there?
Well, I mean, there's not much to add. He took me out of memory lane with Tracy Murray, man. I talked about Tracy Murray in years. But what's your Washington Bullets / your Washington, like the memory that sticks out, the emotional memory, either high or low, that sticks out from the 90s?
For me, it was when Chris Webber came and seeing Chris Webber and Juwan Howard playing together. And unfortunately, I mean, they had Chris Webber, Juwan Howard, and Rasheed Wallace. And then, unfortunately, it didn't last too long because they couldn't stay out of trouble.
Little Rod Strickland, too? Was Strickland there?
Strickland ended up coming he ended up coming in a trade after – I think he came – I don't think he was there when both of them were there. I think he came afterwards. But it just breaking my heart that Chris Webber and Juwan Howard and Rasheed Wallace, they couldn't keep all three of them together. And I think that would have been a crazy formidable front line with anybody in the NBA at that time if they would have let them three really, come into their own together. So I think that my biggest Washington memory in the 90s was seeing that go down the drain very quickly. I was a big Fab Five fan, so seeing two of the Fab Five members on the same team, two of the best players out of that class on the same team, and just seeing how it just went, turned to shit so quickly.
You know what? I'm like you. We're from the same era, so I almost forgot about Juwan and Webber together. I remember that playoff series. I remember them. I don't know if I remember Juwan and Chris talk about how MJ had a Lamborghini out front and was just watching them come off the bus. You know what I mean? And like kind of intimidating. Him and Scotty was on the Lambo just watching them. But yeah, man, those are the days. Rod Strick, one of the most underrated players ever.
I love Rod
Strick. Great.
I wasn't a big fan of Calbert Cheaney's, but he was on that Bullets team. I detested Calbert Cheaney. I did not like him at all.
I don't blame you. His teeth were too big.
I didn't think he was a good player, NBA player, but he was on that team, so I rooted for him.
As a rapper, I got to say, that's got to be one of the best basketball references ever, right? The guarantee make you jump like Rod Strickland, the Wu-Tang line.
Yeah, and then for Raekwon to say he didn't even really know who Rod Strickland was. He just knew he played basketball. Like, it was the greatest.
It just sounds good,
It sounds awesome.
So
that's what's up, man.
Yeah, so this is a goat talk pod, and we did bring you on for the Thunder. We thought that was a cool kind of 2000s team, and really like James put up a poll, and we were gonna be like, we were talking before he got on, it's like, oh, do we put on like do we put on Chris Paul just for the fuck of it? Do we put on like James Harden? But we realized it's really just Russ and KD. When you think of them, what I think one of them kind of has the fans have a little bit more of a better feeling towards Russ because he stayed, but KD was probably the better player. What do you think, like, when you think of that team and just like their best player post Seattle?
Well, it's definitely Kevin Durant without question. And I would even go to say, because I thought about this when you emailed me the question, and technically Kevin Durant is a supersonic. He was drafted by Seattle, so I would still say if you're going off technicality, I think James Harden ended up being the best Thunder player over Russell Westbrook. Eventually he turned into the best player, but between Russell and Kevin Durant, it's clearly Kevin Durant. He's almost 7 feet tall. He got handles. He can score with anybody. He's efficient. He's versatile defensively. He showed that in Golden State. And I just think that they never had a coach that could really bring the best out of both of them together. And I think that was the issue with them playing together. Is no Scott Brooks, because that was their coach. He couldn't bring out the best of them together. And I think Donovan had them for like a year. Neither could he. So I think that was always the issue with them two. Not necessarily the whole, who's the alpha, who's the leader, or whatever. I just think that nobody could do a good job of really getting them to work in concert with each other instead of looking like Russell was always competing with Kevin Durant to be the guy. And but Kevin Durant is the better player. Like I don't know too many. I hear a throat clearing, so somebody might have a problem with that. But I think Kevin Durant is definitely the better player here.
So I would cede the floor to you in all things hip hop and music and rap. Now, things basketball, I'm gonna have to grab the mic. So I don't disagree with you that Kevin Durant is a better player. We're ranking their best careers. KD, obviously, he got the got the MVP, he got the scoring titles, he got the rings. And Russ didn't have as much success by himself as you think maybe KD would. Now, the question is the GOAT Thunder, and I'm gonna have to say, when Kevin Durant left, he broke the Thunder hearts, right? And I think a lot of people would still say he's a great player, but Russell Westbrook was all in, and more than him just signing that contract, he wanted to be MVP. He was Mr. Thunder. And so while Kevin Durant is definitely the better player, I think we'd have to turn and actually ask Thunder fans this. I think Thunder fans would say the opposite. They're going to say it's Russell Westbrook. The better.
That's why I wouldn't ask the Thunder fans, because we know they're going to say Westbrook.
When you're asking
about they're going to say Westbrook.
When you're asking who the GOAT Thunder, like not just the better player, but the GOAT Thunder player, Westbrook, he kind of more embodied what the Thunder wanted to be. He was fearless. He didn't quit. He never gave up. He gave 110%. While some people would say that, look, we know that Mr. Unreliable thing was nonsense. KD's one of the best ever. But the fact that you can lose to a team, and this is not me knocking him for this, right? He made the best business decision for him, got himself his rings. I am not mad at him at all, right? But at the same time, if you're looking from a competitive standpoint, just say, wow, you're our best player, you're our franchise, and you leave us for our main rival. As far as being the franchise, the best, the GOAT Thunder, that goes almost, it's the antithesis to being the GOAT Thunder. And Russ stayed. Sure, Russ took the money. Again, this is all about business. Russ would be dumb not to take that money. He got his money. He got the players he wanted. And he, when the time came, he was open to it. Obviously, they say it's a mutual thing. They're ready to move off from Russ. He was magnanimous about it. No complaints. I've almost never before seen a player leave after all the years the way he did. And I know that, and both him and the fans still love each other. You know what I mean? So I get that Kevin Durant is a better player. I get he's a superior shooter, more efficient. But if you're talking about the GOAT Thunder, I think the way that even when Kevin Durant was there, I feel like the fans loved Westbrook and they liked Kevin Durant. You know what I'm saying? I get that. I think it's a little more than stats here.
If we go on sentiment, I mean, you're definitely correct. If we go on sentiment, I mean, Russell, you would have thought Russell was from Oklahoma City. That's how much they love him there, still to this day. So if you're going on sentiment, you're absolutely correct. I mean, 100% can't argue with you because you're correct. I was just going off of player.
I stopped listening after you said the word correct, so that's all I heard now.
I'm just judging off player, man. I put the sentiment to the side, the personal feeling to the side, how he left to the side, and I just judge him off of pure talent. And I think that Kevin Durant, and the only reason why I wouldn't put Russell third behind James Harden is because James Harden didn't really turn into who he is until he went to Houston. So I definitely still, even with all the sentiment and all that, it will be Kevin Durant. And I think later on this Oklahoma City, I don't think they're ever going to get over the fact that Kevin Durant left the way he left. No. I don't think that's ever going to. They weren't going to win the championship, but I don't think they're ever going to get over that.
Right.
So I mean, like I said, off of pure skill, talent, Kevin Durant. But if you bring sentiment into the discussion, you're absolutely right. It's Russell Westbrook. Like,
So,
he will forever be the number one in their hearts.
So I'm curious now. I'm asking the host here. If you look at their just numbers as the Thunder, they both got an MVP, right? Each one an MVP. KD got the scoring titles, but Russ had some assist titles, I believe. Russ had the 2 triple-double seasons, right? Or maybe 3, I think 2 or 3 seasons in a row, ever triple-double. I lost track. Which, no, it's not a scoring title, but that's a pretty big accomplishment. Like, I wonder, they both played a bunch of All-Star games as Thunder players. KD missed a couple because of the injuries, I believe. So, how those accolades stack up? I know, that's. I just thought about that. Just as Thunder players, we know KD has went on and done even more and better things, and obviously has a better career. But that's an interesting question. Now, I will also disagree about Scott Brooks. Even though I'm a Celtics fan, Russell was my guy, so I'm biased. That's true. But I think the problem, it wasn't Scott Brooks. I'm gonna say it was the ownership, GM problem, because they never got the shooters that they needed. Right? They never got the shooters they needed around KD and Russ, and so there was never enough spacing. They never had like I say, if you had 2 more wings that could really shoot at a high level around those 2, where you can play 5 out, you could go small, play KD at center, and go 5 out. That'd have been incredible, and they never really got that, and that was their biggest downfall.
I would agree with you until I've been able to witness Scott Brooks coach in Washington for
Right.
going on 4 seasons now.
All right.
And he had shooters around Wall and Beal, along with Wall and Beal. And I've watched how the offense turns into grits at the end of games. And I watched his lack of adjusting during games. So, and I always, for me, he was touted as a development coach. Now, while he don't have the same coaches he had in Oklahoma City, I'm still looking for that development in players that aren't top 5 players. I'm looking for that development in players. So, and it's not to say Scott Brooks is a bad coach. I mean, there's been plenty worse, Bernie Bickerstaff. But for me, watching what he did in Washington and then going back and watching what he did in Oklahoma City, I think he works better with the team with 1 star, not a team with 2 stars. Because he did a much better job coaching offense with just Beal this year as opposed to Wall and Beal. And I think he would have done a better job in Oklahoma City with either Westbrook or Durant as opposed to Westbrook and Durant. At the end of the games, it just turned into whoever got the ball, go for it, instead of running the play.
Okay.
Yeah. So I want to just throw in, like, you mentioned this a little bit. I want to throw in some of, like, the stats to go with the Russ KD thing. First of all, James threw out a poll about, like, 50 minutes ago. It got 430 votes so far. 71% said Westbrook. 27% said Durant. So
I got a lot of Thunder fan followers, I think.
So this guy, Brandon Chisman, made a good point. He said, Kevin Durant is the greatest player to play for Oklahoma City. Russell Westbrook is the greatest Oklahoma City Thunder player, which I think is fair. Like, the most talented player is probably KD, but I think the fans will always feel like you said, Pooh, like, he embodied the Thunder, and he, like, they're always going to have that, like, good feeling towards him, whereas they think KD's a snake and a rat, and, like, it just they're going to boo him till the day he retires, and maybe after.
I mean, yeah, it's people who don't even like Oklahoma City who hate what Kevin Durant did. So if they're voting in that poll, they're gonna vote for Russell Westbrook too. They don't like what he did either. I was like, man, this ain't the '90s, bro. Like, players wanna if you tell a player your career is incomplete unless you got a title, what is that player gonna do? They're gonna go get titles. Right, because they feel that's the end all be all. Where in our generation, you have plenty of all time players that don't have titles because of Michael Jordan. So Patrick Ewing, we don't discredit him. We don't discredit the player Charles Barkley was. We don't discredit all of them fabulous players because they never won a championship. We just say you just couldn't get over the hump because it was somebody there better than you. Where this generation is like, if you don't win, you ain't shit. Like, and it's like, what? that don't make sense. Like winning is a I hate to use Jerry Krause, but winning is an organizational thing. Like it isn't just based on one player; it's based on how the organization is ran. So people are gonna hate Kevin Durant to the day we no longer speak about Kevin Durant just because he decided to go play for the Warriors for them 3 seasons and win 2 titles.
Yeah, just to put the stats in context, Russ played 11 years, 8 All-Stars, 2 scoring titles, 2 assist titles. He had the back-to-back triple-double seasons, 23, 8, and 7 as a Thunder. He got the MVP. KD played 9 years, 7 All-Stars, 4 scoring titles, an MVP, 27, 7, and 7. So it's not super lopsided. Like it's not like one guy played 4 years, one guy played 10. We actually have enough of a sample size that we could make this legitimate argument. I just as like best player that ever played the Thunder, I totally agree. It's Durant, he's most talented, but I think it's Russ. I think it's Russ. I think he's the best. He's Mr. Thunder. He's gonna get his jersey retired. He's gonna go back there and raise his family, and maybe Russell Westbrook Jr. will play there.
So you agree with me? You think it's Russ?
I do think it's Russ. Yeah.
Tiebreaker. Got the tiebreaker.
I mean, like I said, you're right. I mean, off sentiment, yeah, you're right. I mean, there's no denying that. Like Russell Westbrook is. You would think Kevin Durant never played for Oklahoma City because of their love for him. So yeah, I mean, in that case, you're right. Like if we're judging, I wouldn't looking at it that I was going off pure talent.
You're right.
And skill. But if you throw that in the mix, yeah, for sure. Like Kevin Durant is so far down, they probably love Kendrick Perkins more than I know they love Nick Collison more than they love. They love Nick Collison more than they love Kevin Durant in Oklahoma City right now. Like he's the real Mr. OKC Thunder. He's Nick Collison. Right. He was
I tip my hat that you're right. That if we talk about either legacy, best player, or stats, it's gonna be KD all day. I just listen to those numbers though. Russ made it a lot closer with the last couple of years. You know, the MVP for MVP. Doesn't have scoring titles, but has assist titles. So like if you just look on paper, it would look a lot closer. But yeah, I mean KD's incredible, man. KD got hurt twice now. Two big injuries, right? He got hurt in OKC and he got hurt again with the Achilles. I feel like with those, if he didn't get hurt those 2 times, KD had an outside shot at being mentioned as one of the, like up there as top 5 with Bron and Michael, because if he had won another title and then say he goes to Jersey and wins another title, 2 more titles, that's hard. That's tough. And so I feel like we got robbed of one of the all-time great careers because he's had 2 season-ending injuries now.
I mean, definitely. I mean, you got to look at it like we didn't start saying Giannis was, potentially coming up being the best player in the NBA. We wouldn't giving it to Kawhi. Like it was Kevin Durant. Like that was it was like,
challenger to LeBron.
Yeah, he's going to get the crown from LeBron. When they played in the finals and he was hitting them shots over him, it was like, it's Kevin Durant. And then he blew that Achilles out, and it's just like Giannis done surpassed him. I mean, Kawhi's always been in the conversation, but Giannis he surpassed him just because of the injury. And you're right, like the foot injury and OKC, major injury for him. And then, now with the Achilles. So it's going to be interesting to see what type of player he ends up being now. I don't know how that Brooklyn thing gonna work out for him with Mr. Flat Earther himself, on the squad, but and they don't have a permanent coach either at this present moment. So it's gonna be interesting how that thing work out for him. But we definitely been robbed so far of one of probably the best talents we've ever seen on the basketball court.
I'm asking you right now on air if you would like to come back and talk to us about the Brooklyn Nets, because that's a fascinating topic.
And I'll come back. I'll come back and do this anytime.
Absolutely. So,
you know what? Because we're not going to be able to get a better guest than you to talk about the Wizards / Bullets. So we might have to just do an entire, because, like I told you, we, the best player for each franchise. You're distinctly qualified to talk about the Bullets / Wizards. So yeah, anytime you want to come back, we could talk to you all day. So we really appreciate you being on.
Oh
Let's get
yeah,
some
man.
let's get some bubble talk, baby. Let's get some bubble talk. Let's get some bubble talk.
Bubble talk.
Hey, the Wizards are in the bubble. What are you? You got like your Saturansky jersey or your Isaac Bonga or?
I need to get me an Isaac Bonga jersey, man. I like that kid, man. I think for the Wizards, I don't care what they do in the bubble. Like I really don't care.
It don't matter. Yep.
It doesn't matter. I just think that this was a great experience for them. Because I mean their announcers talk about it all the time when I watch the games, but for them, this is about finding out who's gonna be able to play with Wall and Bill next year. Like this is all this is. And I know Isaac Bonga gonna be able to play with them because he doesn't need the ball. You don't have to call plays for him. Hachimura is going to be able to run with them. He's going to be a good third option. And they're everybody else, they're trying to figure out where you get in, where you fit in. And so this is going to be good experience for them, for Troy Brown, for Mo Wagner, Thomas Bryant, Jerome, I can't remember his last name. The kid that was on the Clippers.
Yeah, I like him.
Him,
and
Jerome
Robinson.
Jerome Robinson and Troy Brown. Because Troy Brown is the one who really got to figure it out because he, not to get too deep into it, but he plays better with the ball in his hands. And when Bill and Wall come back, you will not have the ball in your hands, sir. Like unless it's to shoot. So yeah, it's gonna be interesting. And it's been cool watching Shabazz Napier get a true chance to play real minutes. Like he's a lot better than I think a lot of people thought he was at the NBA level. He just never really had a chance to get extended minutes, and he's getting all the minutes he can handle right now.
I feel kind of bad about the Wizards right now because they're almost like the Washington Generals. Like they were brought in just to get beat up on. But it's gonna be fascinating to see next year, man. I want to see how Wall looks when he gets back, and we know Beal is a flamethrower. So yeah, you got some things to be optimistic about.
Definitely. As soon as we can get another coach in there, it'll be super awesome. But
who's your first choice? Who's your first choice? You got a choice?
I don't even have one.
Okay.
Not
anybody but Scott Brooks.
Anybody but Scott Brooks. I
feel bad because he seems like, for all accounts, he's the nicest guy. That's why I feel bad saying those
Very
things.
True.
But
I give you this with Scott Brooks. If they could find a way to run the offense they ran this year with John Wall in the game, then they'll be on to something. I think they'll be on to something then. If it goes back to the old pick and roll, John Wall pound the rock for infinite amount of time, then no. But if they can run the offense similar to how they ran it this year with John Wall, which is going to be – the change is going to be for Wall. He's going to have to get used to playing without the ball so much. I think then I'll stop talking so much trash about Scott Brooks at that point. But only then.
We'll probably have to have you on again because we have so many topics that we don't.
Oh yeah, he's coming on to talk about the Nets, baby. We're gonna break down the Nets we're gonna go in depth a little bit about the Nets.
We're definitely gonna talk about Little Brother, but we want to definitely touch on like culture and anybody's questions that anybody had. So this guy Rudy St. Clair asks, is Iverson's influence on the crossover between NBA and NBA culture, is it understated or is it overstated?
I actually think his crossover is overstated. And I think just Iverson, period, what he brought to the NBA when he came in is bigger than his crossover. I just think that, his whole, swag, he really embodied hip hop. And at that, the music of that era, the sound of that era, he embodied that, and he brought that to the NBA with him. I mean, he's the reason why they ended up having to do the whole dress code. Like that was because of Iverson, pulling up with do-rags and long tees and baggy jeans and chains. You know what I'm saying?
You think his rapping ability though? That's a question I want to ask.
Now I'm not a fan of Jules. Jules. I'm not a fan of that guy. But I think his crossover, I think is overstated because even just watching, I was watching rewatching the 2001 finals and watching him play. And I think the thing that really embodied Iverson was his no quit will. Like, for the smallest guy on the court, probably not the most skilled guy on the court, because he was a great player. I'm not saying he wasn't great, but a lot of that was heart and guts and will, because he wasn't the best shooter. Like, his defense was passing lane dependent. Like, he could jump past a lane like no other. But he was this little guy who wasn't afraid to go in the hole. He was acrobatic. And when he got hot, and you couldn't stay in front of him. Like, that was Iverson. And I mean, the crossover worked because he was so damn fast. Like, the true crossover was Tim Hardaway, like, because he wasn't as fast as Iverson, but his crossover was killer. Like, you couldn't do nothing with it.
UTEP two-step.
Sorry, go ahead, James.
Oh, I was saying Tim Hardaway with the UTEP two-step. Yeah,
UTEP two-step.
Do you think that his impact on the culture sometimes overshadows his actual playing ability? Like, people know he's a Hall of Famer, but I think that was – he definitely said crossover, but I think he also meant, like, the way he crossed, like, the way he fused hip-hop and basketball. Like, sometimes I feel like his cultural impact, sometimes people would rather give him credit for the dress code and the you know, the tattoos, and then it almost overshadows basketball. You know what I mean?
Definitely. You know what? Iverson became the first meme or the first GIF with that practice speech. Like he became that guy, and he's been known as that guy, and not enough people really give him the credit he deserved on the court. And part of that was because of people don't realize, like, if you go back and look at them teams he played on, I don't want to call them bums because they were in the NBA. But he played with bums, Jack. Watching that 2001 fight, like, he didn't have anybody else that could consistently get him 20 points a game.
Aaron McKee, Eric Snow.
Right. And Eric Snow, I don't even know if he was even the starter on that team. But Eric Snow, Aaron McKee, old Dikembe Mutombo,
George Lynch.
George Lynch was hurt. He wasn't even playing. He was
Van
hurt.
Horn, maybe? I don't know. Van Horn might have.
Nah, Van Horn wasn't on that team. I don't remember him on that team. But, like, these were the guys he was playing. He went to the finals.
Matt Geiger.
Right.
Yeah, like, he carried this team to the finals. Like, this team. So I just think that we kind of – I think because of his cultural impact to the game, we kind of overlook his actual game and how dominant he was for how small he was. And just he was an awesome player, man. I was watching him from Georgetown all the way through his NBA career. So I definitely was a big Iverson fan.
And you know what? This kind of ties into what we're talking about, because Russell Westbrook has a lot of those same traits, where as far as, like, doesn't quit, the energy, he's got that dog in him. But I'm with you, man. I think it speaks more to how much Iverson meant to the culture as far as hip hop and blending hip hop and basketball, that it was that somehow overshadows a great player. You know what I mean? Because you're right. A lot of people at the top, they talk about the other stuff, the extracurricular stuff, while saying, oh, yeah, he was a great player, but he also did this. And, yeah, man, he was cold. Iverson was ice cold. He, like you said, he wasn't a great shooter. He was a scorer, not a shooter. So he'll have a game where he goes 10 for 18. Cool. There are a lot of games where he'll go 9 for 27. It happens. But, yeah, man, I'm going to say his impact on the culture is not overstated, but people underrate his game because he had such an impact on the culture. I'll agree with that.
Definitely.
So we definitely want to get into Little Brother. And before we do, to tie basketball and hip-hop together, do you have a rapper, whether it be Dame or Shaq a few years ago, is there a player you heard as a rapper who you were like, man, that dude's cadence, that dude's flow is unbelievable. He could make it as a rapper, or like, is there any guy that stood out to you? You're like, damn, like, he's actually a good rapper, and I'm not even just blowing smoke.
I think Dame Lillard is probably the best baller / rapper that I've heard in my lifetime. You know, Dana Burrows probably would have gave him a run for his money back in his day. But
Damn,
it's
that's a deep cut. That's a deep cut.
hey man, hey, I pull him out. But I think it's definitely Dame Lillard. I mean, Shaq was cool, but Dame Lillard is more. If I didn't know he played basketball, I would more believe he's a rapper than Shaq. And so I definitely give it to Dame Lillard.
Trying to think.
The thing about Shaq is that Shaq was more about he was more about personality and presence.
Mm-hmm.
His lyrics were just whatever. But he had so much energy and he had a good flow, but it wasn't so much. But like Dame is a technically precise and he can give you bars, So I agree with there. What do you think about Steven Jackson as a rapper?
I've never even heard Stack 5 rap.
I'm gonna drop a link or two in your DMs later, and we can talk about that.
Please. I've never even heard him rap.
We need your lyrical breakdown of his skills. What was another question I was gonna ask you? James, when we were off air, you had an awesome question. It was like duos in rap and like duos in basketball.
Yeah, so we can link it back and start talking about the bubble a little bit, right? Because we know the contenders, right? The Lakers are obviously kind of like one of the favorites. Anthony Davis and LeBron seem to really mesh on and off the court. You look at the Clippers, they have a weird kind of relationship because we know Kawhi is a superstar, but he's so quiet and kind of introverted. And Paul George is new there too, so they're trying to build chemistry. Then you look at a team like the Jazz, right? They have their they have their issues. Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell were kind of frosty for a bit. And everyone is saying, there's articles out, they don't have to be best friends off the court as long as they can gel on the court. And I think, Pooh, you have a unique perspective on this because as being part of a rap group, that the dynamic as far as outside the studio, I mean, you're just two different people. Not like even on tour or whatever. There was an article, there's on tour, you guys would like go do your own thing, get on stage, and the energy between you guys was so amazing. No matter what, people might assume that you guys are best friends, but it's not like you're enemies. It's not like, but that's just it's about business. How do you, as an NBA fan looking at teams, how do you figure chemistry, locker room chemistry, off court chemistry affects the product on the floor? Do you think a team like the Jazz can move forward with Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert, even if it's just frosty? If they say it's a professional working relationship, do you think that impacts how they move forward? Do you think teams can really coexist? Teams can really thrive if the players don't get along and don't really mesh off court?
I think they can as long as there's real, true, honest respect between the players. Because I remember times where Tay and I wasn't even talking unless we were on stage. And you wouldn't have known by looking at us when we performed. So it can be done. Like I said, I just think it has to be a mutual respect between all parties. You don't necessarily have to be best friends because people are different. They definitely get into different things and have their own circles or whatever. But and you can be the best of friends off the court, and y'all on the court chemistry could suck. So I just think that you just have to have a mutual respect for each other, and if you have that mutual respect and understand, it also comes with understanding how to complement each other. That's a conversation Tay and I had when we were working on the May the Lord Watch album. And thank you. The one thing he said to me was, I learned how to compliment you as opposed to just coming in here and saying, I'm going to write the best verse I can write, and then you write the best verse you can write, and voila, song. It's like, no, we need to figure out how to really compliment each other when we're doing these records. And it makes for better music. And it's the same for sports. It's like, you have to have that mutual respect. It starts there. And then you find out, okay, how can we really compliment each other on the court? As opposed to, you go out and get 30, I'm going to go out and try to get 30, and hopefully we win. It's like, nah, that's not how it works. I think a perfect example of that was watching The Last Dance, and when Dennis Rodman was on the team. And everybody knows Dennis Rodman is an eccentric guy, but they let him do his thing. It was like, listen, you do your thing, just show up, do what you do, grab them rebounds, play defense, get in people's head, set them screens, and as long as you do that, we straight. I ain't got no problem with you. And because it was a mutual respect and they understood what they needed to do on the court. And I think as long as you have players that understand that part of it, I think they'll be okay. Now, as far as Rudy and Donovan, these two young guys, what I keep referencing things I watch because I've watched a whole bunch of things, but I just watched the kid from Coney Island with Stephon Marbury. And the one thing that stuck out to me was how he wanted to be in Minnesota to play with KG because they grew up knowing each other. And when he got there, they were cool. And then KG got paid. And then the problem started happening because Stephon Marbury wanted to get paid like KG just got paid. And it's like, that ain't had nothing to do with KG. Like, that wasn't his issue. And so their whole thing fell apart because of that. And it's like, you can't have that type of stuff, because that has nothing to do with KG. Like, that was a front office decision on what you get paid or what you don't get paid. And that kind of, messed up their relationship. And I think that's kind of what's happening with Donovan and Rudy Gobert. Like, obviously they're not the closest of friends. They may not vibe or whatever off the court. But then you also have the issue of who's the man on that team. Like, it's Donovan Mitchell. He gonna want to get paid like the man. I think Rudy Gobert had got a new deal or whatever, and he got a nice substantial amount of money. He's a good player, but so I think some of that may be coming into play as well. And I was just like, that's not any player on the court problem or fault. Right. However it ends up, like, that's a management thing. So I think because they're young, their egos get involved, like we saw with Penny and Shaq. The egos get involved at that point where when you have veterans like you have a Kawhi and a Paul George, they're veterans. They understand, Kawhi understand what it takes to win. Paul George want to win. So it's like, hey, man, we both pretty much do the same thing. Now we're going to do the same thing together. Let's get it in. Let's lock down. Let's go for it. And because they're older and they're veterans, it's a little different process. As with two young guys, it's all about being the man. And right now, I don't think Paul George care about being the man. I think Paul George just want to win. He just want to be known as a champion. Anthony Davis, he wants to be known as a champion. So they're going to do what they need to do to win. Where you have these two young guys in Utah, neither one of them won anything, and they just vying to be the guy. And that's when your veteran leadership's supposed to come into play. I don't know who's the veteran in Utah that they'll listen to. I don't know. I don't know who's that. Who will be that veteran? I don't think they have that type of veteran there. They have veterans.
Maybe Mike Conley, because there's no real OG on that court. Like, Joel Ingles is, he's been around for a couple of years, but he's not really the OG.
Conley's not a Jazz veteran though. Like he's
right.
an NBA veteran.
Right. He's still new. He's still trying to figure out how to get to the Walmart from his house. So, I mean, I think Conley could end up being that guy, but even that's going to be an issue because he get paid so much, and he's like the third wheel on the truck. You know what I'm saying? Like, man. So I just think they have a lot that they got to work through, and I think a lot of them problems could have been solved if they had, a legit veteran that they really listened to and respected on their team. Because teams with veteran leadership, they don't have these problems. Right. It's the teams without veteran leadership that ends up running into these problems.
And I feel Derek Favors was probably one of those vets that they had, but they had to trade him away a couple years ago. They had released him or trade him away a couple years ago. So that's something that's gonna be fascinating to watch going forward, is that relationship and how they perform together. Speaking of duos, you talk about LeBron, Anthony Davis, Kawhi, Paul George. You got Giannis and Chris Middleton. Who's the duo to watch in the bubble right now? Who do you think the most exciting duo to watch right
now? It's definitely, for me, it's Kawhi and Paul George. I just think it's pretty awesome that you have two fantastic two-way players, not on the same level, I think Paul George has been robbed because of injuries, but I think it's going to be fascinating to watch them two when the playoffs really hit, because they're so interchangeable. Like, you have two guys that can come out and guard 1 through 4, depending, but you got to guard them on the other end as well. Like, you can't sleep on that other end. And I think that's what makes the Clippers so – it makes them a favorite team, is because of their versatility. They're a deep team and they're a versatile team. I mean, I like LeBron and AD. I'm not really high on Russell and Harden.
All right.
Yeah, I'm not really high on them. I mean, I think they're figuring it out, but I'm not really high on them.
Embiid and Simmons?
Definitely not high on them.
I
don't know how long they're gonna be able to play on the same team. I don't know how long that's gonna work.
Who do you think management would keep if they said, hey, we gotta trade one of them, we gotta build around the other? Who do you think they would trade?
That's a good question. History says teams will keep the big guy, but I think Simmons is the more reliable player in this equation.
Health-wise.
Health-wise. So I think they would probably keep Ben Simmons if they had to make a decision. And I think they're only going to have to make a decision because they didn't do a good job of surrounding them with the right players that complemented their two skill sets. You got players around them that shrink the floor. Ben Simmons don't shoot outside of that paint. Why are you getting – they needed to keep a J.J. Redick on that team. They needed to add more shooters on that team. They needed a lot of shooters and then somebody else that can come in and break somebody down off the dribble. And they didn't add a bunch of that.
They had that other shooter that they let go to the Clippers. I forgot his name.
Shamet?
Yeah, Landry
Shamet.
Yeah.
They let him go. And so I just think they done a poor job of really surrounding their two top talents with,
complementary pieces. Yeah.
Complementary pieces. And and all that money they gave to Tobias Harris, and I like Tobias Harris, that could have been spread out to different pieces, different shooters, and people to make sure that you protected for Embiid injuries. So I just think they did a bad job in that front office.
That Al Horford deal, man. They got Al Horford come off the bench now. He's making $110 million.
Oof. That was a bad deal. That's why Boston let him go. Like, they weren't about to pay him all that money.
Now, honestly, I love Al to death. I wish we had kept him, but yeah, at that price point, it just wasn't going to happen.
Another duo. Sorry to cut you off. Another duo. Just talk about Boston. Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. I like really how Jaylen Brown came into his own this year. He really exploded and upped his game. So definitely, and I like their fit with Kemba. I think Kemba is a way better piece, way more complementary piece than Kyrie Irving was. Mm-hmm. I think if they would have been, like you said, if they would have been able to keep Horford with adding Kemba,
yep,
man, Boston would be my pick out the East for sure. I made a very important.
Yeah, so we were talking about duos, and before we let you go, we do want to get some little brother questions in. So you mentioned kind of like the relationship you could have with Tay, and we might not know it. Like, and when you're on stage, your interpersonal relationship could be one way, and the fans only see another way. What's your relationship with like him now? And kind of, I know you you had the album out, the May the Lord Watch album, which I personally love. What's your relationship like with him now, and like kind of the future of Lil Brother and like future albums together? Where is that right now?
Our relationship, we're in a great place, man. I think what we learned was that we needed to really sit down and learn who each other, who we are as people. And when you first get into this, when we first got into this, we just hit the ground running. Like, we didn't really take the time to learn who each other were as people. We just knew we liked different things. Our interests were different. And this go around, we're older, much more mature as people. We understood that full transparency and just really checking in with each other and understanding who we are as people was of uttermost importance in proceeding forward with you. When the Rona happened, so we had a documentary we were working on that we haven't completed yet. We still needed more interviews and things of that nature. So it's a couple things. We wanted to shoot more videos for songs off the project. So now we just really been trying to put our heads together and figure out what we wanted to do is that we're all under. So I just tell people, man, stay tuned, man. We definitely trying to figure it out. We'll let the people know when it's time for the people to know whatever it is we're gonna do next. We haven't quite put our finger on it yet. Cause I mean, even at this time, we're both like I manage. I have, clients, and one of my artists is preparing his debut album for Interscope Dreamville. So I'm heavily involved in that. And then
Loot, right?
I got Loot. And then I got an R&B cat, Black Soul, who he just put out his album in May. And then I got another young guy from Selma named T. Smith, and we're working on his next project. So I've been working on that, and I know Tay been working with a few artists on their new projects. So after we wrap those up, then we'll come and put our heads together and kind of see where we want to go, man. It take a lot for me now to really write a song. In my younger age, my younger years, I go in there and I work like there was no tomorrow. Older me, it take a lot of energy. It take a lot to rev this engine up. so I'm just enjoying working with the younger guys and continuous having conversations with Fonte and kind of figure out how we want to what we want to do to keep the brand rolling, because we reactivated it. So the whole point of us reactivating it was to continuously keep it going.
So on this most recent album, I maybe I could be wrong here, but I feel like there were certain subject matters that you decided to touch on that maybe you haven't in the past, like talking about like the Uber pickups and like, just like drugs and stuff. Like what made you on this one particularly, on this album, what made you want to like dive into those like a little bit more personal topics?
I think just being more mature, man, and being more comfortable with sharing those things. I'm a notorious private person, and even when I put some of them lines, like when I put the Uber line in, like I just wrote it. I didn't even put a lot of thought in, because obviously before I said it on record, I could have went back and changed it, but I just wrote it and I said it. And I was listening to it all night, and then I was like, man, I think I'm gonna change that, because I'm just letting people. That's gonna just open up for too many more questions, and I don't want to get into that. And I sat and thought about it for like a day or two, and I was like, man, you know what? I'm gonna keep it in there, man. This is gonna help. This is gonna be for. It's a lot of artists out there that are, working whatever jobs, whether it's driving Uber, doing this to car, or whatever they were doing before Rona. Trying to make ends meet. Everybody can't be Jay-Z You know, everybody can't be T.I., you know. So for me, I felt it was important to leave it in there, and then some of the other stuff just to leave it in there just to show people like a different perspective. And plus Fonte told me he wasn't going to take it out anyway. He told me that he wouldn't have took it out if I'd have tried to take it out. So because he always believed in sharing, you know, those things. And so I wasn't comfortable when the album came out. Trust and believe, like it wasn't a comfortable feeling because I knew the questions that were going to follow. But I just grown to embrace my struggle. And that's all it really was. It's just I tell other people to do it. I had to do it. And that's just embrace whatever your struggle is.
Yeah, no, I mean, you guys have always had relatable lyrics. Like, I know you had like Fonte had a line like, "I'll pick you up in the coops," like, you know, I got a Nissan. Like those type of raps. Like for me growing up, like guys are rapping about chains, guys rapping, and like you're talking about, you know, pulling up in an Altima. Like I thought that was always like super dope.
Yeah, man. You know, a lot of music that we listen to is some form of escapism. But we never really wanted to do that type of music. We just wanted to be who we were. And what you're getting in our music is our perspective throughout the year. So if you go back and listen to our first album from 2003, when we were making that album, I turned 23 when we put that album out. So I was making that album from years 21 to 23. And so the way I thought, my perspective at 21, 22 years old isn't the same perspective I have now at the age of 40. And so just going back and listening to all the records, like I said, you get a chance to really grow with us and hear our different perspectives on life, just in general throughout the years.
Yeah. Just real quick, because I know James got a roll and we've had you on for so long. We're definitely going to have to do a part 2. Do you have any Little Brother songs that are like your favorite? Because I wanted to ask you, I was doing some research and I personally am such a fan of like the Minstrel Show and songs like Doing Me and Dreams and stuff. Do you have any particular like LB songs that you personally go back to listen to, like, oh, like the way Dreams hits or the way Doing Me hits with Superstition, like, or any there any songs in particular? And I wanted to ask you about Hip Hop DX published like a 10 best Little Brother songs, and they had Lovin' It 1 and Slow It Down 2, and they had All For You. I was just curious, like, your favorite songs, and if you ever saw their list, and just kind of like your personal favorite LB songs.
And real quick, real quick to piggyback on that, in the same vein, we watch players go nuts on the basketball court. What's one song that you feel like you were in the zone on? The song that you just felt like, when you listen to it, like, oh yeah, I remember this one. I killed this one. Or we killed this one as a duo.
I got you. Well, no, I never saw Hip Hop DX list.
I'll send it to you.
Yeah, that's interesting. For me, I tend to lean towards the newer songs is my favorite, just because that's the best version of me. So I always lean towards the newer songs. Dreams is definitely one. That's a favorite of mine. If I had to pick a song that wasn't on the new album. To answer your question, James, I think the song that I really felt like I was in a zone in was Hiding Place. I picked that beat. I was there when Ninth made that beat, and I fought for that to go on the album. I was hyped up because, you know, obviously Elzai's on the record, but me and Dilla originally was supposed to be going back and forth on our verse. Damn. And so I was hyped for that. And so how the story goes, what we ended up doing was, because we didn't know if we was going to get him or not, they were like, because Elzai was with us in the studio when we cut the record, when we wrote it and everything. So they was like, all right, Pooh, you just do your verse, and then if we got to go back in and break it up, we'll break it up. But you just write your verse in one whole verse, and then Tay and Elzai going to go back and forth. So I'm like, cool. So in my mind, I'm not thinking about breaking it up later. I'm thinking about, I have two rap titans that's going to be going after me. So I can't let myself down. So I don't know where I went, what zone I got into, but I think that's one of them. even when I finished and listened to the playback, and I was like, yeah, I did that on that one. Like, they can't deny me on that one. And I think Hiding Place was that record, like one of them records for me.
That's what's up.
What's your relationship like now with Ninth? Because I know that's something that people on the internet, and you probably get this question all the time, but it just seems like you're like, especially Mitchell's show, obviously key contributor there, and people always ask like, oh, is he going to be on the album? They ask him, they probably ask you. Where are you guys at, like, creatively or even just personally? And do you think you guys will work together again, and in what capacity?
We don't even have a relationship now, man. And it's not no beef. It's not no, thing where if I see him, it's gonna be furniture moving. It's nothing like that. It's just, I think once we did the show in 2018, the show that brought us back together, we had all been talking, but once we did that show and the things that proceeded after that show, I kind of really realized it's one of the things you get, Fonte said all the time, is like, there's not an issue, it's just clarity. Like, that's when you realize, okay, you are who you are, and I am who I am, and I don't see this working in any capacity. So, obviously I'll always honor and respect what we did together as far as listening and the minstrel show. But Little Brother has, for all intents and purposes, been a duo since 2006, 2007. Unbeknownst to most people. So for me, like I said, we don't have a relationship, and I wish him the best in all his endeavors, but I don't see, and I can say this one confidently, I don't see us doing any music in the future.
I had one other LB contributor that I wanted to ask about. I know this has been covered over the years a little bit, but you had a Drake song, "Don't You Have a Man," a song that I really like a lot. And I know that there was a time and place. Correct me if I'm wrong. I know there was a time and place where you guys were trying to maybe work with him, and he publicly said, like, I kind of dropped the ball. Like, there was a time where it was going to happen. We were going to have another collaboration. I was wondering if there's any, maybe he was more specifically trying to get on maybe a Fonte song, or maybe it was a Little Brother song. Do you think that's like an LB Drake collaboration will ever happen again? Or you think that was a moment you had, and then maybe that passed, similar to Ninth, where it's like you had your moment, you respectfully are going different ways? Like, what do you think about that?
I know that time you're referencing, that was for Fonte. Fonte was supposed to be on one of them Drake albums. I can't remember which one.
Or
I think it was Take Care. But I don't know, man. I just, because people ask me about Drake, they ask me about Kendrick, and I don't know. I just think that sometimes you just get to a point where the time and the moment passes, and it's no hard feel. Well, I mean, at least for me, it's no hard feelings, on either accord. I never had a relationship with Drake. I never even spoke to Drake. I actually had a relationship with Kendrick, and I mean, when we see each other, it's still love. But I always understood that, guys like that, they went into another stratosphere as far as their careers. And I look at it like, I'm no slouch, but what does us doing a collaboration do for them at this point? And that's how I look at it. So it may be one of them things where we just have to be in the same room for something to happen, or maybe not. I don't know. But I don't think about it. I mean, we had our time. We did our thing. I'm just, it's dope for me to say that I was there at the precipice of Drake's career, at the precipice of Kendrick Lamar's career, at the precipice of Kanye's career. Like, I had a I played a part in all of that. So
how did that record come about? Are you talking about "I See Now" with Kanye?
Yeah.
How did that come about?
We had a conference in North Carolina. We used to have this music conference, Southeastern Music Conference, and Kanye had came down that year. I'll never forget it. Me and Ninth went over to the hotel to see our at the time we were on ABB Records, the independent label, and we went over to see him, Benny B, and he was standing there talking to Kanye. And obviously we knew who Kanye was from the Blueprint or whatever. And and he introduced himself to us, and he recognized when he realized who we were, because he was fans of ours. It was nonstop. Kanye rapping nonstop. I couldn't get rid of him the whole weekend. We ended up taking him to eat, tried to go to the club. That got shut down. Took him to the strip club. Like, we literally hung out that whole weekend. Like, I hung out with him. And then subsequently afterwards, when he would come through town, he would always hit me up. Like, if they had after parties. I remember I didn't even go to a show. I just popped up. He called me to come to the after party. So I'm kicking it with him and John Legend. We at some club doing the after party. And, you know, it was cool. But that particular collab, we during that weekend, you know, he was like, yo, can we get in the studio? And I was like, yeah, that's easy. So I called Tay, because Tay wasn't with us. So I called him and was like, yo, you know, Kanye want to go to the studio. And we ended up rolling to the studio, and Consequence was there. And because I had been kicking it with him all weekend. And the thing about that session, the story out of that session for me was, I was so mad. I was so pissed. When we sat down to do the song, Kanye he was like, yeah, I'm gonna go first or whatever. And Tay was like, well, I'll go last. So I'm thinking me and Consequence be in the middle. And Kanye was like, man, I think y'all two should trade off. Y'all should split a verse. I'm like, split a verse? Fuck you talking about splitting a verse? Like, you doing the whole verse, Tay doing the whole verse. Well, I got to split a verse with this dude. Like, and so we went out to the car, and you know, reluctant. I was reluctant, but we did it, and we wrote the verse together, and we came in and did it. And Kanye, he was like, yo, man, that's dope how y'all was going back and forth and trading in and da-da-da. And I was just sitting there looking at him pissed the whole time, and looking at Tay pissed, like, bro, you really co-signed with this dude for me not to get my own verse. But the song came out dope. It came out super dope. But that's my story from recording I See Now with Kanye. Like, we actually did that one in the studio together. And it was definitely it was memorable, I'll say. It was definitely memorable.
Yo, that is an awesome story. That's kind of it for the LB questions I have. James, do you have anything else to add before we wrap up here?
I mean, I'm almost like, I don't want to talk basketball now, but who you got win the title this year, bro?
Clippers.
I love it. I like it.
I just think they're the deeper team. They're deep and they're versatile. I'll say that way. They're deep and they're versatile. And I know the Lakers are going to they're going to go big. Like, they have the option to put LeBron, who's 6'8", Kuzma, who's like 6'10", Anthony Davis, who's 6'11". Then you could put in Dwight, who's 7. Like, they have all these tall players, but they're going to have to depend on Deion Waiters and J.R. Smith. I'm not really worried about J.R. Smith. I'm more worried about Deion Waiters.
Yes, sir.
They're going to have to depend on them guys, and I don't know how that's going to work out for them in the throes of a 7-game series with somebody like the Clippers, but it's definitely going to be entertaining.
Who's your dark horse? Because we know you said the Clippers. We know the Lakers are contenders. The Bucks are contenders. Who's your dark horse this year? Who do you think has a long shot of coming out and winning a title?
Houston.
Okay.
I think Houston. If they can, you know, Eric Gordon come back from the ankle injury he suffered. I think if they get on a little run, I think they're going to be a problem because they space them out. Everybody on the court can shoot threes, and we not worried about grabbing rebounds. We worried about chucking up threes. And if they get hot and get going, it's going to be night for somebody. So, but this is where a team like the Clippers come into play because they have the versatility to guard something like that. They can put that same type of team on the floor with Montrez at the 5, and then just, you know, Paul at the 4, Kawhi at the 3, and Patrick Beverly and whoever else you want to have in the game at the same time. So I think they're going to be a dark horse team, and I'm really interested to see what Boston's going to do. Because I watched them a little bit this year, but I think they have the ability to. They're very versatile as well. They have a lot of versatile pieces between Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, Marcus Smart. They have a lot
Gordon
of
Hayward.
Gordon Hayward. I keep forgetting about him. They have a lot of wings and a lot of versatile pieces, and they have the right leadership now with Kemba Walker. So I'm definitely interested to see how they're going to play. That's why I think it's going to be interesting for the Lakers because they're a big team, and most of these other teams aren't big. They're going to run and gun. So it's going to be, and I think out of the top. Tier teams, they have get used to when he was in Cleveland. I don't think it will, but I put it on Twitter the other day, man. In our generation, I don't know about you guys, but in our generation, I was watching old highlight films, and I think we were robbed of probably one of the greatest generational talents in basketball when Penny Hardaway had to get microfracture surgery.
Absolutely. Him and Grant Hill. The two what else?
Him and Grant Hill, man. I was just really watching. I was watching clips. I think because it started because Blue Chips came on, and I was watching Blue Chips, and then I started watching old Penny clips, and I'm like, yo, he was really legitimately 6'8", 6'9", and can do any and everything with the bat. He had all the moves. He could shoot. He could guard. He could do everything. It's just that microfracture knee surgery took him out the game, and he was never the same. Chris Webber was never the same. Amari Stoudemire was never the same. Jonathan Bender was never the same. Brandon Roy, I mean, he was bone on bone. But Penny Hardaway, I think that was a generational talent, and Grant Hill that we really never got to see fully because of injuries, and this is so unfortunate.
Absolutely, man. Totally agree. So, hey, I don't know. You want to let people know where they can find you? You got anything coming down the pipeline?
Sure, man.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, y'all can find me on Twitter and Instagram, rapper Big Pooh. I'm more on Twitter than I am Instagram. That's where I really go have my fun. And then yeah, man. I mean, for right now, you can just check out Loot. If you want to know what I'm doing, check out what Loot is doing. LUTE. What is it? Loot_West9 on Twitter and Instagram. And check out Black Soul. BLAKK. SOUL and rapper T Smith. Check them out on Twitter and Instagram because that's what's coming down the pipeline for me is whatever's coming down the pipeline for them young guys.
We're on it. You say check it, we're gonna check it.
Yeah, well, on behalf of James, we're so thankful you came on, man. We definitely are gonna need to do another pod where we get more into detail with basketball and Washington, and we'll stay in touch. And yeah, man, we're real thankful that you decided to join us tonight, man. We really appreciate it.
No problem, man. Like I said, anytime, man. I'm at home. It's still Corona protocols in my house, so if I'm not out riding my bike or walking or at the grocery store on Mondays, I am in the house. So I have plenty of time.
Well, we're gonna take you up on that, brother. I really appreciate it, man. This has been one of my favorite interview I've ever done. So I really appreciate you coming on.
No problem, man. It's all love. It's been fun.
Yeah, no,
all love, brother.
You can find us at the Flagrant 2. You can find James at Snottie Drippen. You can tell Tay if he ever wants to talk shop. He's more than welcome as well. And
Tay don't know nothing about no basketball.
well, we love rap too. So if he wants to talk rap, we can definitely do that. But,
for sure.
But hey, man, thanks so much for being on. And we'll post this. We'll make sure to tag you. And yeah, we'll do this again soon. So thanks so much, bro.
No doubt, man. Y'all have a good one.
All right.
All right, bro.